Hey Clashers, only 9 days left in the season, and this means let's talk about defense. I want to share with you a couple of tips and tricks how you can improve your own base building skills and mechanics, how you can identify good bases more quickly, but as well for everyone who's just here maybe for base links, don't worry, I will share 5 base links with you down below the description of the video. But let's get into the action, because let's start and take a look at the first base. This base was actually as well copied by the #1 global player. He adjusted things a little bit, but I think he made the base worse. But let's get things started. First things off is one of the most important things about base building right now, and that is the defensive pathing. Which means if you're connecting all of those defenses, they need to make a pathing away from your main defensive tools. And that is pretty much for us, our win condition as a defender are those 2 heavily stacked rage towers, which can deal all the damage to take down the troops. Because if you don't use rages right now, you typically always lack damage of taking other troops out. So for the attacker, the main goal here is to interrupt this ring somewhere. And for this, as a defender, we're doing a really nice trick. And that is having areas where you cannot deploy a Royal Champion easily into. Because if you want to get in there, well, your Royal Champion needs to go to the outside first and then come back. Or on this side, if you deploy the Royal Champion over here, she goes there. Over here, she goes here. So you cannot access those connection layers right away with having those outside boxes here, which makes sure that the Royal Champion is always getting funneled in those. Which means at this point, it's now 5 openings. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which an attacker as a Royal Champion charge attacker is likely to use. Well, at this point, it's all about taking a look at the base and see what the biggest weakness is. If you can take down this compartment right here, you have then the pathing like this, or if you have the take it out like here, you have the pathing in there, for example. So there are always some options, so we just have to pick a side and hope for the best. So for us, so let's get out of the scout view. I've predicted the bottom side and then some red mines on this side for healers, and then on this side as well some traps. The problem here now starts with the available traps. If you want to use the giant bombs and small bombs to really stop a Royal Champion charge, you need to take down the Fox. For taking down the Fox, there's 2 things which are important to know. The first thing, you need a total of 4 giant bombs and 4 small bombs if the attacker is rotating the invisibility spells correctly. On this one, you see, we have more in this compartment, but the problem here is that we have only 8 giant bombs and 8 small bombs. So we need other tools to make our defense even stronger against the Royal Champion charge. And this is now maybe the new thing for many people. And if we take away this air defense, you see what I mean? That's the bomb tower. Because the pathing here is pretty clear. No one is going to enter from this top side because, well, the Royal Champion would just get lured away from the mortar, for example. So people have to enter from this side. So they're entering here, catching the first giant bomb, Tesla, then going for the air defense, which we just removed. And then they're getting rotated into the bomb tower, which means the bomb tower is pretty much like a stronger version of another giant bomb we have if we can force the Fox on top of it. And with the tornado trap, that is quite easy. The tornado trap otherwise is not really doing that much anymore in the defensive things, because the sad news is that if you have a tornado trap somewhere like in the middle of the base, for example, you rotate everything on top of each other. And at this point, they might have split already, right? Like troops might go everywhere, so healers are less efficient. But if you have healers going in here and they're getting pushed all back together, the healers have a great day of healing everything back up. And you might even have the Royal Champion getting rotated into the middle of things and get healed back up to full HP. So the Tornado, in my opinion, is the best use right now to really defend Royal Champion charges. Rotate her on top of bomb towers, for example, or rotate her into a wall so she's stuck, for example, and waits a couple of seconds. Those are like the best things you can possibly do. But a bomb tower, always remember that is pretty much a stronger giant bomb. And this allows you to then be safer on the bottom side. So that's exactly what we're doing here. But let's take a look at a couple of replays and see how attackers try to really take down this base, because as I said, this worked really, really successful. Now we have a classic Root Rider approach. Again, we have baited this bottom corner, the right corner. Those are the 2 things we have baited. We have as well the Giga Bomb over here to make sure that this looks somewhat baited as well. It's always like a gamble, but that's pretty much what we do. Now we have the Royal Champion charge going in here. I have a Tesla in front to make sure that all of those outside buildings are destroyed with the aura. So the Fox is following and is jumping into all of those traps. The first couple of traps did not connect right away because the Fox was still stuck on the outside. But because we were allowed to have so many giant bombs on the side, because we have the other bait on this far right side, it still worked. The attacker still was able to get the cut though, because as we talked about earlier, the job of the attacker is to interrupt this ring. That's what he did. He did not get that cannon, for example, because we took down the Fox somewhat early. As well, the Monolith can always help, because the Monolith and the Scatter Shot, for example, are defenses which typically are attacking really fast. So you need to be perfect with the invis spells, otherwise you're going to receive a couple of shots on your Royal Champ or on the Fox. Now we have as well the one Spring Trap at the top side working. We have now the Root Riders coming in. All of those test stones are taken care of the red mines, so that is good for us. And this now means that there is less traps for later on, so the black mines can hit. Overgrowth on the core, everything as usual. Now the troops are going to walk around. And you can see here, for example, the Royal Champion pulling ahead. He has to pop that eternal tome, the healing tome to make sure that she's staying alive. But if there would be now the tornado trap, for example, that would literally help the attacker. So that's why I tried to have it over here on as well. It did not work out. I switched it back to the Giga Bomb. The next thing now, again, another overgrowth for the core, because this guy really wants to make sure that the Race Tower is not going off. But it did not work, and the issue here now is that the Crusher Mortar is non-stop firing. If you're talking about like a possible 2-star, what he should have done, he should have just overgrowth the back and Rage Tower compartment, but he didn't do that. And now the raged up Crusher is just completely crushing his streams, and this is going to be a nice 1-star defense. So you can see what you can do. Obviously, as an attacker, you can always play it better, and as a defender, you're always on the like you are relying on the attacker doing mistakes. But with those heavy damage areas, you can really force those mistakes on people who are not as experienced, for example, or doing other mistakes in general. Something which I have learned as well for this base specifically is that you can trigger apparently the Rage Tower, which when I used the base no one really did, but I feel like by now people have copied this base already so much from me that they're now aware of those tricks. But still, it did really well for myself and as well those who I'm sharing my bases with, like for example, Cedric. So yeah, I mean, what can I say? It worked as it was supposed when I designed the base. But let's take a look at another base and see what I did there, maybe in a different way to make it work. Since the 2 islands of Rage Towers worked quite well, I thought, okay, let's try to test something new, because that is for me always the main thing about base building. Try to adjust working things and see how far you can push the limit in different directions. I get a lot of times the question, iTzu, what are the base building rules? What are things you should follow and such? And to be honest, there are no rules. This is the cool thing about base building. You can just try things out, test if they work, and if they don't work, try to change them. And if they work, great. Try to build on the success you were able to get and try to change little things, but keep the core of the success of your base, for example. So for me, what I really liked about the previous base is that I had 2 islands of heavy damage. So I thought, okay, what is if I cannot get access as the attacker quickly in one of those islands? And what is if I turn 2 into kind of 3 different threats on the field? So I isolated the Town Hall. I turned one of the Rage Towers into an Invis Tower. And then I had another Rage Tower on the outside. Again, as I said, by now, people will know that they can trigger them. So be careful. Push them a little further inside the base, for example. And on top of that, try to build a base where the Royal Champion charge is as obvious as possible. So what I did here is just put it like this. If you take a look at the traps, you see, it's going from the Wizard Tower to the Air Defense. Those things are going to trigger right away. And it worked like a charm. The problem, though, is that I did not really have a spread out bait. Which means if the bait is so compact as it is right here, even with the Fox going down, typically players have like 6, 5 invis spells. So they would still get the Monolith and still create the pathing they were coming for. Yes, they lost the Fox, but because they only had to go this little distance, they still got the value. After that, they just went in from this bottom side, and it was an easy triple. So this is now, what should I have done differently here? First thing, When you have an entry, and this is typically the best thing which can happen to a base builder, if you have a base with an entry which is that obvious and everyone is running it, just trap it like there is no tomorrow. On the first base, I had the traps, like the black mines, kind of spread out mostly. On this one, what I should have done is I should have fully committed. Put those like red mines, which we have right here, all around this bottom side. So like healers, like the test tunes for sure are going down. And then collect all of those black mines I have more spread out because of like, if I put all of them together in this compartment, dragons are kind of free. But you have to heavily commit to one defense. So this is, for example, something which would have worked way, way better because with this setup, we take down the test tunes early on. Then the black mines. The attacker has a couple of options. Option number 1, lose all of their healers. Or option number 2, use the warden ability early on if they have the Eternal Tome. Yes, this is quite coin flip, but if they're like this entry was played plenty of times, but at that time back then, I was really such in tunnel vision. I was like, okay, this base doesn't work. I use it one day, move on. Looking back at it now, this is something which I want to give you on your way. Rewatch the attacks, and if there are certain entries which are getting used a lot, try to trap them even more heavy, because this is how you collect defenses, and if you have like 1 to 2 defenses a day, this is already giving you ranks and pushing you up in the trophies. That is just how the current system works, with defending being so hard. So this is something I should have done with this base. By now it's obviously too late. As I said, like this outside rage tower is not working that great either anymore. So time has passed, but still I want to give you my mistake on your way, so you're like you are learning from my mistake and not making it either. Because this is typically one of the best things possible happening to a base builder. If everyone is using the same entry, just trap it. The important thing though is do not move any visible buildings, because otherwise people might go for a different entry, and that's the important thing. But as I said earlier, I will put the first base and as well the second base down below the description of the video, and even 3 more bonus bases which I used over the season. Maybe you can like use it successfully, maybe you can tweak it, maybe you can learn something from them. Totally up to you. But that's pretty much it for this video. So far, it seems like a lot of you were liking those base pitting tips and tricks, so I will keep them coming, always adding a couple of new things like today with the bomb tower, because that was another thing on this one. Bomb tower is not utilized to full potential, but yeah, I mean, we're still learning, right? Like, we learn with every single mistake we do, especially in base building. And one important thing as well, there are no rules in base building. Try it out, give it a try, go crazy, go creative, and see if it works. Some will, some won't. That's how it happens. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I wish you guys back tomorrow with the next class video. Until then, see ya, and bye-bye.